Hello and welcome to Masechus Rosh Hashana Daf Zayin, number 7. Hope everyone had a good Shabbos. Alright, we're going to start on the bottom of Vav Amud Beis, where it says, Ibayalahu, 3 lines from the bottom, Ibayalahu, Bechor Me'emasai Mon Lo Shana. We know that you count the Shalosh Regalim, you count the Baal Ta'acher, the Shalosh Regalim. You have a year to bring the Bechor. When do you start counting for the Bechor? Abaye Amar, because we said before that you can be over Baal Ta'acher, you don't need Shalosh Regalim, even a Shana, 1 year, could violate, even without the Regalim, could violate Baal Ta'acher. Abaye Amar B'Shash Novad, it starts counting from the time that the animal is born, the Bechor is born. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amar Mishash Nira Lehartza. From the time it was 8 days old, where it could be offered as a korban. You can't bring an animal as a korban before 8 days. Below Pligi, the Gemara says these two opinions don't argue. Habitam, Habibalmum. If it's a tam, if it's an animal which doesn't have a mum, so it starts from the 8th day when you can offer it as a korban. Although before that you couldn't have it as a korban. If it's born as a balmum with a mum kavua, so it's not fit to be offered as a korban. So therefore, it has to be given to the Kohen within a year, and that starts from when it's born. So the Gemara says, is it even possible to eat the Bechor if it has a mum the day it's born? You can't eat an animal until 30 days to assure that it's not a treifa. The Gemara says, the Kimle be shakalu lo chadashuv, that it was a full term pregnancy in the mother, and therefore the animal was born after however many months of gestation it is for an animal to be born, say a sheep or a calf, and it was a full gestation, and therefore it's not a chash of a treifa. We're not concerned it's going to die. You can eat it immediately if it's a balmum. Tan Rabbanan. Zayim and Aleph. Be'echad b'Nisan Rosh Hashana l'chadashim u'liburin l'truma shkolim v'yisham raf l'skiras batim. This price enumerates more things that Rosh Hashana serves as Nisan. Rosh Chodesh Nisan serves as the Rosh Hashana for. Chadashim is considered the first month. Whenever the Torah says a number of a month, you count from Nisan. It says the 7th month, you know it's Tishrei, because Tishrei is the 7th month after Nisan. U'liburin. I'll see what that means in terms of making a leap year. Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the beginning of that year. L'trumas shkolim, also for bringing shkolim to the base of Megish for Karbanos. Yesham Raf l'skiras batim. Some say even for renting out a house. We'll see the Gemara talks about if you say I'm going to rent you a house for this year, it goes until Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Chadashim Minol, and how do you know it's the first month in terms of calculating what month it is? תכסיב, החודש זה לכם ראש חדשים, ראשון הוא לחודשי השנה. דברו על כל דעת ישראל, לאמור בעשרה לחודש הזה, ויקחו להם איש שא לבייס אבו, שא לבייס, והיה לכם לנשמרת על 14 יום לחודש הזה, ושחטו also. This pasuk is talking about Pesach, obviously. Calls it Chodesh HaRishon. Now, it doesn't mean it's in Nisan. How do you know it's in Nisan? Tchsiv, Shmor is Chodesh HaAviv. Regarding this commandment of Chodesh HaRishon, it says you should watch the month when the produce ripens. Ezu Chodesh Yesh Bo Aviv. What month of the year is when produce ripens? Heavy Omer is a Nisan. That's Nisan. Nisan is when the produce from the winter that grew over the winter, it ripens. That's considered to be the Chodesh Aviv. Therefore, we know it's Nisan. So therefore, it says the first month. Rishon Hu L'Chodesh Hashana. That's still a Nisan. The Gemara says Ve'ema Iyar. Maybe it's actually talking about Iyar. Iyar also, it's a month later. Food ripens then also. Ba'ina Aviv Aleka. The Gemara apparently assumed that there was ripening, and then the Gemara says really there is no real ripening during Iyar. Almost all of it is done during Nisan. The Gemara says Be'ema Adar. Maybe Adar. Adar is when fruit starts to ripen. Rov Aviv Aleka, you need that most of the month there's ripening, and only a small portion of the month of Adar there's ripening. So the Gemara says, Midi Rov Aviv Ksiv? It doesn't say Rov Aviv, it just says Aviv. As long as there's ripening during that month, it's feasible that that's the month. So it could be Adar, not Nisan. Ella Amar of Chisda Mahacha. We learn it from here. Ach b'chamisha asar yom lachodesh hashvi ba'asvachem estuas haaretz. The 15th day of the 7th month, when you gather the grain from the field. Ezo chodesh yesh b'asifa. One is the month where you harvest the grain. Heavy Omer, is that Tishrei? That's Tishrei, the 7th month. Kari le shvi, it calls it the 7th month. So if you calculate 7 months, so obviously the first month is Nisan. So the Gemara says, Ve'ema Mar Cheshvan. Maybe the 7th month is Mar Cheshvan, which would make Iyar the Rosh Hashana, the first month. Mai Shvi, Shvi li Iyar. But you need it to be a month of gathering, of harvesting, and you don't do that in Mar Cheshvan. V'leika, Ve'ema Elul. Say Elul. Mai Shvi, Shvi la Adar. Rosh Hashana, really, the first month is really Adar, and the 7th month is Elul. But Rov Asif V'leika, you need a month where Rov of the month you're gathering in, and Elul, only a minority of the month you're gathering in. So the Gemara says, Midi Rov Asif. The Gemara says, does it say Rov Asif? As long as there is gathering in it, it should be valid. So we don't know for sure it's Nisan. Rosh Hashana, it could be its other. Halamar Ravina, the Davar Zemi Torah's Moshe Rabbeinu Lamad. We didn't learn it from Torah's Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not clear. It's not a clear proof that we learned it from the Torah, the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. We did read Kabbalah. We learned it Kabbalah, Nevim and Ksuvim. We could learn it out. Yom Esrim Arba LeEshtei Asar Chodesh Chodesh Shvat. The 24th day of the 11th month is Shvat. So the 11th month calls it Shvat. So therefore, the first month has to be Nisan. Rav Barula Amar Mahaka. Atilakach Esther al Melech HaChashreya shel Beis Malchusa b'Chodesh HaAsiri b'Chodesh Teves. It's called the 10th month Teves. So if you go back, the first month is going to be Nisan. Rav Kahana Amar Mahacha. Arba l'Chodesh HaChihi b'Kislev. The 4th of the month in Kislev, the 9th month, which is Kislev. So if the 9th month is Kislev, the first month is Nisan. Rav Bar Yaakov Amar Mahacha Yikru Sofrei HaMelech b'Yisai b'Chodesh HaShlishi b'Chodesh Sivan. It calls Sivan in the 3rd month. If Sivan is the 3rd month, and the first month is Nisan. Vashi Amar Mahacha Hahipil Pur Hu Agora Lifnei Haman Miyom Liyom L'Chodesh L'Chodesh Shnei Masar Hu Chodesh Adar. It calls the 12th month Adar. So obviously the first month is Nisan. Ma'asema. Alternatively, Mahacha B'Chodesh Harishon Chodesh Nisan. It actually says it very clearly. The first month, which is Nisan. The Chulu My Time Alam. We just had 5 proofs that proved it from a different one. This is much more clear. It says the first month is Nisan. Why don't we say that? Mahai Dilma My Rishon Lamilsa. This pasuk is talking about when Haman ascends to power. Maybe it's the Chodesh Harishon is not talking about the first month in terms of calculating Chadashim, in terms of calculating months. It just means the first month of the ascendancy of Haman when he rose to power. That's what it's talking about. So it's not conclusive. It's talking about this is the first month in terms of calculating months. Betana Didon B'Shanim Kamayri B'Chadashim Lo Kamayri. Why did our Mishnah also say that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the Rosh Hashana for months? Because he was talking about things that you calculate a year. For example, the year, what year of the reign of the king it is, but not in terms of just figuring out what month it is. This month is Iyar, this month is Nisan. That is a calculation that only lends itself to figuring out months, doesn't lend itself to figuring out a year in its entirety. Liburin. Now we're trying to dissect the second part of this price. So Liburin Nisan Manina. Do we really count it from Nisan? The leap year of Hatanya in Ma'abra Hashana Lifnei Rosh Hashana. You don't make a leap year, meaning every leap year is only when you add an extra Adar. When Basin had to decide whether to add an extra Adar in the following year, you don't make the decision before Rosh Hashana. Mibrua in a muberes. If they did it before Rosh Hashana, it's not muber. It's not a good adding of the extra month. If they had to, they could do it right after Rosh Hashana. Only Adar. So you see, it's not from Nisan. It doesn't mean that they started making the Ibra year from Nisan. It means they stopped making it on Nisan. Meaning, once Nisan hit already, you can't make a Shana Muberes anymore. Once the calendar turns to Rot Aleph Nisan, you can't make it a Shana Muber anymore. They testify that you could do an Ibra year. All of other, you had the ability to make that year into Shana Muberes. Some people said you had only until Purim, not the whole other. My time on the Purim. So we're trying to figure out what's this the one who says you only have until Purim until Yudal or Ted Vav Adar and to make a Shalom Beres. Who says that? Why do you say? I came with Amar Mar Shalom Milchas Pesach Kon Pesach Shloshim Yom. There's halacha that you start asking Shalom V'Dorshin. You ask about Hilchos Pesach. You learn about Hilchos Pesach 30 days before Pesach starts. So therefore, people already have their minds once Ted Vav or Yud Dalet of Adar comes, they're already starting to learn Hilchos Pesach. So they're not going to be, even if Basin's Ma'aber the Shana, they're not going to pay attention to it, and they're going to have in their minds, they're going to be laser focused, and 30 days it's going to be Pesach. Asi Lil Zuzule B'chametz, it's going to come out that they're going to be Ma'aber it, and then it's going to be a month later, and they're going to treat Pesach a month earlier, and then a month later, one after that, when it's really Pesach, they're not going to keep Hilchos Chametz. V'idach, the one who says they have the whole other, why isn't he worried about this? May the Yadi, Yediya, the Shasa Ma'abras, and Chushma Italian is. People really know that figuring out an Uber year is totally in calculations, very hard calculations. If they're told later on, 15 days later, at the last day of Adar, that they made an Uber year, people will receive it correctly. And they'll realize that it's true, they did make it an Uber year, even though it's after Purim, even though they started learning Hilchos HaPesach, because they couldn't figure out the calculations until now. The Tana did on why did our Mishnah include for Shana Muberes, that's Rosh Chodesh Nisan is considered the Rosh Hashana. Ba'askala Kamairi, Ba'hafsaka Lo Kamairi. He was talking about a Rosh Hashanah where it's the start of the year, not where the conclusion of the year. Rosh Hashanah here is the conclusion here, not the start of the year for making a Shana Muberes. Shumas Shkalim. The Bryce also says Shumas Shkalim, the Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Minalan. Where do you know this from? Amar Rabbi Yoshi, Amar Kra, Zos Olas Chodesh B'Chadshah L'Chadshe Hashana. It's a long pasuk. It says the word Chodesh 3 times. Amar Torah Chadesh, because it says the word Chodesh 3 times, one of them is used Chadesh, new, Ve'avei Korban Mitruma Chadasha. On the first month of the year, which is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, you should bring the karbanos that are normally brought in the base of Mikdash, the tzmidin, the ketzim mizbeach, should be brought from the Truma Chadasha. They announced the shkalim in Adar. All the shkalim, the new shkalim, the machsa shekel was brought in Lerm Sech Shkalim was brought by Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So Rosh Chodesh Nisan, you start offering karbanos from the new money. The Gam Rishana Mishana Mi Nisan. We learn Agzir Shava. It says the word Shana and Shana from Nisan. How do you know this pasuk of Zos Olas Chodesh B'Chadshah was referring to Nisan? Because the Agzir Shava, it says Rishon Lechem L'Chadshe Hashana by Nisan. Ligmar Shana. So therefore, Shana, it says over there, it's about Nisan. So the first pasuk is also Olas Chodesh B'Chadshah L'Chadshe Hashana is also talking about Nisan. The Ligmar Shana Shana Mitishrei. Why do you learn Gzera Shava Shana Mitishrei? Dichsiv Reish Hashana. There's a pasuk in Dvarim that says Hashana, Reish, the beginning of the year, is referring to Rosh Hashanah. It's in Tishrei. Dan in Shana Sheishim Achadashim, Mishana Sheishim Achadashim, Ein Dan in Shana Sheishim Achadashim, Mishana Sheini Achadashim. We'd rather learn Gzera Shava Shana from the pasuk Zos Olas Chodesh B'Chadshah L'Chadshe Hashana. It includes, it says Chadashim month, and it says Shana also. So therefore, we'll learn the Gzera Shava. Rishon Hem Lehu L'Chaim L'Chadshe Hashana. It includes both the word Shana and Chodesh, as opposed to the pasuk in Reish Hashana, which doesn't include the word Chodesh. Amar Rabbi Yom Shmuel Karban Sibur Aboin Be'echad B'Nisan Mitzvah Lahavi Min HaChodesh. Like we just said, that it's a mitzvah to bring the new Tamidin and the new Karbanos that you bring in that year from the new Trumas, the Machsa Shekel, the new Truma for that year. Maybe Min HaYashna, be brought from money that was collected last year, the Machsa Shekel, Yotza. He's Yosei, Shachrisar Mitzvah. He wasn't Mekayim this mitzvah of the pasuk Zos Olos Chodesh B'Chodsho L'Chadshe Hashana. V'imhevi Tanya Namihachi Karbonos Sibur Aboin Ve'echad B'Nisan Mitzvah Lahavi Min HaChodesh. The mitzvah is to bring from the new Truma. V'imhevi Min HaYashna Yotza Al Shachrisar Mitzvah. The Brayso adds on V'yachid Sheis Nadiv Mishalo. Let's say another person wanted to add money besides the Machsa Shekel. He wanted to bring more money and bring a korban. Ksherin, that's a kosher korban. As long as he gives over the money to the tzibur in a definitive way, and really mean that he's giving all the money to the tzibur to bring korban. It's pshita. It's obvious. If he gave the money over, he gave the money over. Ma'od the same leichu shema Although Yimsri and L'Sibur Yafi Yafi, really he had in mind, he wants to be a personal car, but he doesn't want to give the money over to the Tzibur to purchase carbonos for the Tzibur, Tmidin and stuff like that. Kamash Malan, we're not worried. With Hanadan, why did our Mishnah include that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the Rosh Hashana for the Machzah Shekel, bringing our carbonos? Given the Katani Imhevi Yatza Lo Psigle, since B'diavad Yotzi, even with last year's money, it's not definitively the new Rosh Hashanah because B'diavad it's not really true. The Brisa says also it's the Rosh Hashanah for leasing a house, renting out a house. Let's say I rent you my house out for a month. You may stipulate for a year. I stipulate for a year. Mona shnei masar chodesh miyom liyom. You count 12 months. Miyom liyom. That day, the next year, is when the lease ends. Mar l'shana zu. If he said for this year, afilu amad ela be'echad ba'adar. Even if he only rented it out on the first day of Adar, came and shegi yom echad b'nisan also lo shana. The lease is already concluded on the first day of Nisan, because that's considered a year in terms of Skiras Batim, according to this price. Now the Gemara just explains a little bit. Regarding certain halachos, one day, like we said before, in terms of the years for a king, the reign of a king, when you write on a star, what year it is for the reign of the king. So one day can be considered a year. Yom Echad B'Shana Chashav Shana Shiny Hacha. Here it has to be only Rosh Chodesh Adar. It has to be at least a month. The Lo Tarach Inish L'Meger Beisa L'Batzir Tlatzin Yomi. No one's going to rent a house for less than 30 days. It's not worth it for them. The Ema Tishrei. Maybe the Rosh Hashanah for Skiras Ba'atim is Tishrei. Stam Ki Agar Inish Beisa L'Chuli Yimosag Sham Agar. Normally when a person rents out a house, he really wants to rent out a house. Really, he needs a protection in the winter. So therefore, it's not mistaber that the Rosh Hashanah is going to end, the year is going to end in Tishrei, and then he's going to be left without a house for the whole winter. If he's renting it before Tishrei, he wants it after Tishrei the whole winter until Nisan, when the winter ends. Tana Kam the Brisa, Tana Didan. Tana Kam the Brisa, who doesn't say who, it's only Yesh Omrim that says Skiras Batim, and also our Mish doesn't include Skiras Batim. Why did they include Nisan is the Rosh Hashanah? But Nisan Nami Mishka Shchiach Kitrei. In Nisan, there's clouds also, and it rains sometimes in Nisan, so therefore it's not clear whether Rosh Hashanah for Skiras Batim should be Nisan or it should be Iyar, maybe Sivan. It's not clear one way or the other, therefore we don't include it as one of the Rosh Hashanahs. Now we go back to our Mishnah. The Mishnah says on that base, the first of Elul is the Rosh Hashanah for Ma'aser Behema Mani. Who is the author of the Mishnah? Rameir here, Desanya, Rameir Omer Be'echa Be'el Rosh Hashanah L'Ma'aser Behema. In terms of Ma'aser Behema, we're calculating which year, right? You have to take off a tenth of your newborn animals, Ma'aser Behema. So you have to take them off, the animals from that year, that were born that year. And the year stops on Rosh Chodesh Elul. That's the cutoff point. So you have to take off a certain amount from before Elul, and and after Elul goes until the next Elul. You take off based on the animals that were born that year. So you can't be maser 1 year for the next. Our Mishnah also said that one of the Rosh Hashanahs is Nisan for the Regalim in terms of calculating Baal Ta'acher, Mani Reb Shimon. So that part of the Mishnah is Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon's the one who says Kesidra, and Baal Ta'acher starts Chagamatzos. It has to be 3 in order: Chagamatzos, Chagashuas, Chagasukos, in that order. Ema Seifa. Say the end of the Mishnah. Reb Shimon, Omrim Be'echa B'Tishrei. They argue on a mayor. They say Ma'aser Behema, the Rosh Hashanah is not Rosh Chodesh Elul, it's Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. So what's going on over here? How could it be that part of the Mishnah is Reb Meir and part of Reb Shimon? The Gemara says Reishav is safer Reb Shimon. It's Yasser Reb Meir. Doesn't make any sense. Amar Rav Yosef Rebbe it's not really, the Mishnah is not either Reb Shimon or Reb Meir. It's really Rebbe here, and he paskined the halacha according to certain Tanaim. He paskined in terms of Ma'aser Behema like Reb Meir, that it's Rosh Chodesh Elul is the Rosh Hashanah, and in terms of Regalim, he paskined like Reb Shimon that Nisan is the Rosh Chodesh, the Rosh Hashanah. Regalim start like Reb Shimon, and Ma'aser Behema start like Reb Meir. Ihachi Arba Chamisha Havel. If it's really true that it's Rebbe, So then, Rosh Chodesh Elul is the fifth one. It's the fifth year. If we were learning according to Reb Shimon, the whole mission is Reb Shimon. So Reb Shimon holds that Meiser Behema is really Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. So therefore, you only have 4. But if we hold as Rebbe, he paskins like Rameir in regard to Meiser Behema. So now we have Rosh Chodesh Elul. It should be a 5th one, not 4. Why is the Mishnah are Rosh Hashanah? Amar Rava Arba L'Divrei Hakol. He says Rava says that really it is 4 according to every opinion. Rameir Arba Dal Regalim. You include Elul for Meiser Behema, but you take away Rosh Chodesh Nisan or Tedvav Nisan. You take that away because Rameir holds 1 regel. He doesn't hold like Reb Shimon Kesidron, like 3 regalim in order. But Reb Shimon Arba, according to Reb Shimon, it's also 4 Dal Meiser Behema. He holds regalim. Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Rosh Hashanah, the regalim. But you take away Meiser Behema because Meiser Behema is included in Rosh Chodesh Tishrei as Rosh Hashanah for Meiser Behema. Overhen Kame Rosh Rav Nachman Yitzchak gives a different answer. Amar Arba Chadashim Overhen Kama Rosh Hashanah. There's 4 months, and among them there's many Rosh Hashanahs. Meisive Shisha. According to Rav Nachman Yitzchak, he's basically saying you don't count two of the calculations in the Mishnah. One was from the 15th of Nisan, and one was for Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So that we treat as 1, even though it's 2 different days. Treat as 1 because it's the same month, Nisan. So there's only 4. Meisive Shisha Asar b'Nisan Rosh Hashanah LaOmer. Shisha b'Sivan Rosh Hashanah L'Shnei Alechem. Raisa says that in terms of the Omer, in terms of Matir Chadash, grain that grew before the new grain that grew before Ted Zayin Nisan. Once Ted Zayin Nisan comes, it allows you, an individual, to partake of the new grain for common use, not to be used in the mincha in the Beis Hamikdash. That ends the Shtei Alechem. When you bring the Shtei Alechem on Shavuos, that matirs the new grain in order to be brought as a korban mincha. So that is in terms of calculating a year, in terms of when it allows you to bring either for personal use or for use in the Beis Hamikdash, the new grain. Those are also Rosh Hashanah the same. The Rava listing Shisha, according to Rava, you should say 6 because we have 2 more. The Nachman Yitzchak listing Chamisha, you should say 5, even though the one of Shisha of Ted Zayin Nisan is, or we have Nisan already, so we don't include that with another one. But Sivan is we don't have in the Mishnah. Amar of Papa Kika Chashiv Midi Dechayel Ma'orsa Midi Lochayel Ma'orsa Loka Chashiv. We only count in the Mishnah things that start at night, but the Omer and the Shtei Alechem are totally in bringing the korban Omer, which is brought during the day, and the Shtei Alechem also is offered during the day. So therefore, all the other Rosh Hashanahs start at night. These start during the day. Ari Regalim L'Chayel Ma'orsa Chashiv. Regalim in terms of Baal Ta'acher. That doesn't start at night. You can't bring a korban at night. So in terms of the first time you can bring a korban on the 3rd regel is during the day. So that shouldn't be included either. When you make a neder to bring a korban, so even though you have 3 regalim, but you're immediately chayiv to bring it. Al ta'acher is just a gemar of that period that you're allowed to bring it. But since you're chayiv mikar, and that you can be chayiv at night, you can make a neder to bring an animal Beis Hamikdash at night. So therefore, it's considered something which starts and really ends at the night. Yovel, which the Gemara assumes is blowing the shofar on the 10th day of Tishrei and Yom Kippur, which happens during the day to mark the inauguration of the new Yovel year. That happens during the day. And our Mishnah counted that. Rabbi Shmuel, my answer is Rabbi Shmuel ben Beno Shel Yochanan ben Broka. Our Mishnah follows the opinion of Shmuel ben Beno Shel Yochanan ben Broka. Dam Rosh Hashanah Chayil. He holds Yovel starts not on Yud Tishrei, not on Yom Kippur, actually on Rosh Hashanah on Aleph Tishrei. It's not toloi in blowing in the shofar, and therefore it starts at night. Rosh Hashanah Chayil Yovel. Rav Shisha Breid Rav Yidi Amar Kika Chashiv Midi Delo Tali B'Maisa. Midi Tali B'Maisa Loka Chashiv. The reason we don't include the shtei alechem and the omer is because that's something which needs. It's not because it's chal during the day. It's not chal at night. It's a different reason. It's because you need a maisa. You need to actually bring a korban omer, a korban shtei alechem. The other things in the Mishnah are not totally in bringing something, doing a maisa. The Gemara says already regalim. We need to totally a maisa, like a chashav. Regalim, the way the article explains it is that it starts Baal Ta'acher, starts when the korban tamid is offered on the first day of the regal. That's the availability to bring a new korban, and that's bringing a korban tamid. That's a ma'isa, a chashav Baal Ta'acher. So the Gemara says Baal Ta'acher memela chayil. It's hard to understand exactly what the Havamina and the Maskan in this Gemara is. The Gemara is basically saying Baal Ta'acher happens Mamela. It doesn't happen based on the Korban Tamid. Really, technically, once the Korban Tamid is roy to be brought, you're already over on Baal Ta'acher. What about Yovlos? That's also totally in Tkiyas HaShof, which is a Ma'aser. Like we said, our Mishnah does not follow the Tanna Kama, follows Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Roka, who says that it's totally in just turning the clock, turning Shkia on Aleph Tishrei at night, and not on a Maisa, on the Kiyas HaShofa. Rav Ashi Amar Arba Rosh Hashana. How do we answer? What about Shtei Alechem and Ksiras and the Omer, Havasa Omer? Why are those not included in our Mishnah? Arba Rosh Hashanim Heim Shein Arba Shein Baharba Rosh Chodesh Chodashim. Our Mishnah says our Rosh Hashanah, it's talking about 4 Rosh Hashanahs that happen on the first day of that month, and Ted Zayin Nisan or Vav Sivan are not the Rosh Chodesh of that month. So the Gemara says Be'echa B'Shvat Ki Beit Shammai. So it said 4 things, and one of them, the only way we're going to calculate 4 things that fall on 4 different Rosh Chodeshes is calculating Rosh Hashanah Ilanos like Beit Shammai. That's the first day of Shvat. So there's really 3. We don't pass like Beit Shammai normally. The Gemara says Shlosh L'Divrei Hakol. The Mishnah meant to say 3 according to everybody. Back with Shvat Maklokes Beit Shammai Yisrael. The 4th one really could count with the 4th. It's Maklokes Beit Shammai Yisrael. It's just enumerating different possibilities. So since 1, 2, we already have 3. If ever you can add on a 4th one, which is actually Maklokes Beit Shammai Yisrael, even though we're not passing like them. But once we already started counting 3, so we'll add in a 4th one, which is a Maklokes. Hope you have a good week. See you tomorrow.